Hi everyone, it's Jana. For as long as I can remember, I've been known as the big sister. The one helping mom with the little ones, the one staying at the big house while my sisters started their own families. I always knew God had a plan for me, even when it felt like I was waiting in the shadows. But today, I'm talking to you from my very own home in Nebraska, and my life looks so different than I ever dreamed. On December 30th, my heart was completely changed forever when our sweet baby boy, Archie Gerald, finally arrived. We kept him a secret for a little while, just to soak in those early moments of wonder and gratitude. Today, I want to invite you into the full story, 70 minutes of my journey from the big house to this quiet life as a mom. I'm sharing the raw truth about my high-risk pregnancy, the gut renovation of our house while I was expecting, and the moment I finally held Archie in my arms. This is my dream come true, and I'm so happy to finally share it with you. For a long time, the question I got most was, Jana, when is it your turn? I watched my younger sisters walk down the aisle, one by one, and I celebrated every baby they brought into the family. I loved being an auntie, and I loved helping mom at the big house, but there were quiet nights when I wondered if a home of my own was in the cards. I stayed at home for 34 years, and people used to call me Cinderella, but I didn't see it that way. I was just waiting on God's perfect timing. I learned that His timing isn't our timing, and even when the cradle is empty, His hands are full of blessings. I spent those years learning skills, like carpentry and gardening, not knowing I'd one day use them to build a nursery in a different state. Looking back now, I can see that every year of waiting was actually a year of preparing. Stephen and I first met way back in 2011 through our families, but we were just friends for the longest time. It wasn't until 2024 that we really reconnected, and this time everything felt different. We chose to court privately, away from the cameras and the public eye, because we wanted to build a real foundation. In June 2024, Stephen completely surprised me, which is so hard to do, with a magical mountaintop proposal overlooking a lake. I said yes to the love of my life, and it was the best decision I've ever made. We were married in August 2024 in a beautiful ceremony in Prairie Grove with 500 of our family and friends there to see us start our lives together. Stephen is my rock, my partner, and now the most wonderful father I could have ever asked for Archie. Moving away from Arkansas was one of the biggest changes of my entire life. I had lived in the same house with my parents and siblings for over 3 decades, and the thought of being hours away in Nebraska was both exciting and a little scary. Packing up my things and saying goodbye to the daily chaos of the big house was emotional. But Stephen had bought a fixer-upper in Nebraska for us to start our lives in, and I knew that was where I belonged now. Leaving my sisters, especially my twin brother John, David, was the hardest part. But we were ready for our own rhythm. Nebraska has become our sanctuary. It's where we've worked side by side to turn an old house into a home, and where I finally stepped into my new identity as Jana Wissmann. When Stephen first told me he had bought a house for us in Nebraska, I was so excited to see it, but I also knew we had a massive project ahead of us. It's a ranch-style home in northwest Lincoln that he purchased for $275 selozid, and while it had great bones, the interior was very dated and in desperate need of a total refresh. It's about 100 square feet with bedrooms on every story and a basement, which felt like the perfect size for us to grow into. When I first walked through the door, all I saw was potential, the spacious floor plan, the fenced-in yard, and the 2-car garage. But it was a true fixer-upper. We're talking about shiny, old flooring, dark wood accents, and a kitchen that hadn't been touched in decades. Our first big project was actually combining two of the bedrooms on the main level to create a large primary suite with its own bathroom because we wanted a place that felt like a true sanctuary. We've spent so many hours ripping out old carpet and prepping walls for paint. It hasn't always been easy, and there were times when the dust and the noise felt like a lot, but doing the work ourselves has made every room feel so much more meaningful. It wasn't just a house we bought, it was a home we were building with our own hands, and that made all the hard work feel extra rewarding. The summer of 2025 was already so special because we were coming up on our very first wedding anniversary. Stephen and I were just settling into our new life in Nebraska, still busy with the house, when I started feeling a little different. I didn't want to get my hopes up too high because after waiting so many years to find the right person, I knew that starting a family was another miracle that would happen in God's timing. We celebrated our anniversary on August 15th, reflecting on how it had been the best year of our lives. Just 3 days later, on August 18th, we were finally ready to tell the world our big secret, that we were expecting a little bundle of joy in January 2026. I remember the moment I told Stephen, we were both just in awe. To go from being single for so long to being a wife, and then a mother, to be all in the span of 1 year was almost hard to believe. We took some maternity photos outdoors. My sister-in-law was so sweet to take them for us, and seeing myself with a baby bump for the first time was a moment I will never forget. The anticipation started building right then, and we began counting down the days until January. One thing people don't tell you about home renovations is how hard they are when you're dealing with first trimester morning sickness. We had committed to a full gut renovation of the kitchen, which meant we had no stove, no sink, and no counters for weeks. I had to set up a temporary cooking space on a small work table in the living room, using an electric griddle and a coffee maker just to make basic meals. I'd be in there trying to fry eggs while surrounded by painter's tape and power tools, and some mornings, the smell of the food was almost too much for me. Since we didn't have a kitchen sink, we had to wash all of our dishes in the bathroom sink, and I even used a shelf next to the shower as a makeshift drying rack. It was a challenge, but I kept telling myself it was only for a season. I spent hours applying wood filler to the cabinets and sanding them down, trying to keep my focus on the finished product. Stephen's parents even came over to help us with the painting, which was such a blessing. Even though it was grueling and I was exhausted, seeing that kitchen slowly turn into a clean, white space with gold hardware made all the morning sickness and the bathroom sink dishes worth it. Once we made that initial announcement in August, we decided to pull back a little bit from the public eye. We wanted to keep the specific details of the pregnancy private for a while so we could just enjoy the experience together. We called it our January bundle of joy, but in our hearts, we were already calling him Archie. I shared a few bump updates here and there, like when I was halfway through and finally feeling those tiny kicks. But for the most part, we stayed focused on our life in Nebraska. There was something so peaceful about having a secret that was just ours and eventually just our families. My sisters were so supportive, especially Jessa, who joked about wanting to be the favorite auntie. We spent those months nesting and preparing, and as the winter months approached, the excitement in our home just kept growing. We knew that January would bring a massive change, but we had no idea just how much our hearts were about to grow. Keeping those early months quiet allowed us to find our own rhythm as a couple before we became a family of 3. One of the most special projects we tackled was the baby's room remodel. We chose a room that we painted a beautiful soft green and Stephen spent so much time in there getting it just right. He's so handy, and seeing him work on the space for our son was so moving for me. While we were working on the nursery, we were also finishing up the living area, including building out a new fireplace. Stephen was in there drilling into the bare walls, creating a custom gas fireplace that would eventually become the heart of our home. We even put a large portrait of the two of us from our beach trip above it to tie the whole space together. I remember going on trips to Lowe's together. I think I've spent more time in the plant section there than anywhere else lately, picking out things for the house. Everything in the nursery was chosen to be cozy and welcoming. We wanted Archie to have a space that felt like it was built with love. Even though the room wasn't 100% finished when he arrived on December 30th, the work we put into it made it feel like the perfect place to bring him home. When I found out I was pregnant at 35, I knew that things might look a little different for me than they did for my sisters who started their families in their early 20s, because I was considered advanced maternal age, which always sounds so funny to me. The doctors in Nebraska wanted to keep a very close eye on me. We had more frequent check-ups and more detailed ultrasounds than I was used to seeing with my sisters back in Arkansas. It wasn't always easy. There were moments when the medical terms and the extra tests felt a little overwhelming, especially since I've always been someone who prefers a more natural approach. But Stephen was such a steady support through it all. He went to every single appointment with me, holding my hand as we listened to Archie's heartbeat for the first time. The doctors were wonderful, making sure that my blood pressure and health were monitored carefully so that we could have the safest delivery possible. Even though the term high risk can sound scary, I felt a lot of peace knowing we were doing everything we could to bring our son into the world safely. It was a reminder that every life is a miracle, and sometimes that miracle just needs a little extra care and attention along the way. One of the most special moments of my pregnancy happened when I found out that my twin brother, John, David, and his wife Abby were also expecting. Growing up as a twin, John and I have always had a very close bond, but sharing our pregnancy journeys together was something I never could have planned. We decided to do a double gender reveal for the family, which was such a joyful day. I remember the excitement when we found out that I was having a boy, our sweet Archie. And then just moments later, we found out that John and Abby were expecting a little girl. It felt like God was just pouring out blessings on our family. We've always been close. But now we get to raise our children together, and they'll have each other as cousins just like we had each other as twins. My sisters were all there, and seeing the joy on Mom and Dad's faces as they realized 2 more grandkids were on the way was something I'll cherish forever. It made the distance between Nebraska and Arkansas feel a little smaller, knowing that my twin brother was going through the same season of anticipation and preparation that I was. The end of December was a blur of cold Nebraska weather and final nursery preparations. Then, on December 30th, just a day before the new year, our lives changed forever. Labor was long and intense, and it was the hardest work I've ever done, but I kept my eyes on Stephen and remembered the years I had waited for this exact moment. When I finally heard that first cry, all the pain and exhaustion just vanished. Archie Gerald Wissmann was born at 9:11 p.m., weighing 7 pounds and 7 ounces. He was perfect in every way. They placed him in my arms, and I just couldn't stop crying. I had held so many babies in my life, but holding my own son was a feeling I can't even put into words. Stephen was right there, and seeing him look at our son for the first time made my heart feel like it was going to burst. We were no longer just 2 We were a family of 3. It was a quiet, holy moment in that hospital room, and it felt like the most beautiful gift God could have given us to close out 2025. Phew! One of the funniest and most amazing parts of Archie's birth date is that he actually shares a birthday with my brothers, Jedidiah and Jeremiah. They were born on December 30th as well, so now that date is even more significant for our family. When I called the family to let them know Archie had arrived, Jed and Jer were so excited that they now have a birthday buddy in their newest nephew. In a family as big as ours, birthdays are already a huge production, but having 3 of them on the same day is going to be quite the celebration every year. It's just another one of those little details that makes me smile. It feels like Archie was always meant to be a part of this family, right down to the day he was born. He's already brought so much light to those cold winter days, and I know that every December 30th from now on is going to be filled with cake, laughter, and a whole lot of gratitude for these 3 special boys. After we brought Archie home, Stephen and I made a very conscious decision to keep his arrival a secret from the public for a little while. We wanted those first few weeks to be entirely about him, finding our rhythm as new parents, learning his cues, and just soaking in the quiet of our Nebraska home. We didn't want the pressure of announcements or social media comments to intrude on those precious early days. We told our immediate family, of course, but we asked everyone to keep it under wraps. It gave us 3 weeks of pure, uninterrupted bonding time. We spent our days in our pajamas, staring at his tiny features and marveling at how much hair he had. It was a sacred time for us, away from the Duggar spotlight. By the time we were ready to share the news on January 21st, we felt so much more settled and confident in our new roles. That 3-week bubble was the best gift we could have given ourselves and our son. When we were finally ready to share Archie with the world, we chose a very special photo for his debut. It was a portrait from our first trip as a family, a beautiful day at the beach, where the light was just perfect. I remember standing there with Archie in my arms and Stephen by my side, feeling like everything had finally come full circle. We also took some photos inside our new home, right in front of the fireplace that Stephen worked so hard to build, even though the house was still a work in progress. I think there was still painter's tape on some of the trim just out of frame. It felt like the perfect place to show our son to the world. That fireplace has become the heart of our home. It's where we sit every evening, just soaking in these early days of parenthood. Seeing our family portrait hanging above it makes the whole room feel complete. It's a reminder of where we started as a couple and the beautiful life we are now building as 3. One thing I didn't expect when we shared Archie's photo was the massive debate that started in the comments. It seems like everyone has an opinion on who he looks like. A lot of fans have been saying that Archie is a twin for Joy, Anna's husband, Austin Forsyth, or their son Gideon. I have to admit, when I look at his eyes and the shape of his nose, I can definitely see what they mean. It's so funny how family genes work. Others say they see a lot of my brothers in him, especially Jed and Jer. To me, he just looks like Archie. He has Stephen's calm spirit and maybe just a little bit of that Duggar determination. Regardless of who people think he looks like, he is uniquely ours. We love reading all the sweet comments and seeing everyone so excited about his arrival, even if we're just laughing at how much a little baby can look like so many different people at once. As we settled in with the baby, the reality of living in a construction zone really hit home. Our kitchen renovation took much longer than we expected, and for the first few weeks of Archie's life, I was mastering the art of makeshift cooking. I learned how to make full family meals using just a slow cooker and a microwave on a folding table. It wasn't always glamorous. Washing baby bottles in the bathroom sink at 3 a.m. is something I'll never forget, but it taught me a lot about what really matters. You don't need a custom kitchen with marble counters to feed your family with love. Now that the kitchen is finally coming together and I have my beautiful white cabinets and gold hardware, I appreciate every single meal so much more. Looking back at those tabletop cooking days, I just smile. They were part of the journey of making this house our own, and they make the finished space feel like a true victory. Living in Nebraska, 7 hours away from the big house, has been a journey of finding my own voice. For 34 years, my identity was so tied to being one of the Duggars and being part of the family show. Here, I'm just Jana Wissmann. The distance has given me the space to figure out who I am as an individual, as a wife, and now as a mother. I love my family dearly, and I miss the daily chaos of my sisters, but there is a peace here that I've never known before. I don't feel the need to perform for the cameras or worry about the next storyline. My life is quiet, it's private, and it's mine. I'm learning that it's okay to step out of the shadows and build a life that looks different than what everyone expected for me. Nebraska isn't just a place we live, it's the place where I finally grew up and realized that God's plan for me was even bigger and more beautiful than the one I had imagined for myself in Arkansas. Oh, one of the highlights of January was when Mom and Dad made the drive up from Arkansas to meet Archie for the first time. I was a little nervous. I wanted the house to be perfect, even though we still had boxes everywhere. But as soon as they walked through the door and saw their newest grandson, all that stress just melted away. Seeing my mom hold Archie and share her wisdom about the newborn days was so special. She has so much experience, and having her there to just talk and pray with me meant the world. Dad was so proud, too, walking around the house and looking at all the work Stephen and I had done. They were so supportive of our move and our new life here. It was a beautiful bridge between my old life and my new one. Having them in our home, seeing them bless our son, made Nebraska feel even more like home. It reminded me that even though we are miles apart, the love of family is never far away. If I could go back and tell the younger me, the one who was still waiting and wondering, one thing, it would be this: every moment of waiting was worth it for this. Motherhood has been more challenging and more rewarding than I ever could have described. I spend my days in a state of wonder and gratitude, whether it's the way he smells after a bath, the tiny sounds he makes in his sleep, or the way he already seems to recognize my voice. It's all a miracle. I don't mind the sleepless nights, because they are spent with him. I'm learning to slow down and just be present. For so many years, I was busy taking care of everyone else, and now I get to focus all that love on this one precious little life. It's a holy calling, and I feel so honored that God chose me to be Archie's mom. Every day is a new adventure in grace, and I'm soaking in every single second of it. As we look ahead to the rest of 2026, my heart is just so full. We have a lot of plans, finishing the last few rooms of the house, starting our first garden in Nebraska, and watching Archie hit all his milestones. I'm excited to see the man Archie will become and to continue building this beautiful, quiet life with Stephen. My journey might have taken longer than some people expected, but I wouldn't change a single day of it. I've found that when you trust God with the waiting, He rewards you with a fulfillment that is far beyond anything you could ask or think. Thank you all for following my story, for your prayers, and for your kind words as we start this new chapter. Life as Jana Wissmann is a beautiful adventure, and I can't wait to see what else 2026 has in store for us. There is so much joy in the journey, and I'm so glad I get to share a piece of it with you. God bless you all,